remember vividly sitting at the kitchen table in our tiny house downtown in this like granny breastfeeding nightie that I had, and just being like, I am feeling the four horsemen. And I just remember looking at my partner and being like, I am feeling a lot of resentment and I am feeling a lot of contempt, and I do not want this to get the better of us, and I want us to go to couples counseling. And thankfully, my partner was game and it did a lot for us, but I loved to hate on it. And there's a couple reasons for that.
Welcome to the Sex After Kids podcast, a place for parents to come and learn together about the sometimes bumpy road back into the saddle of their sex life after adoption, childbirth, or joining a blended family. I am your host, Sophia Ashley, certified sex educator and sex coach, mother and stepmother, and your totally TMI guide to becoming BFFs with your body and initiating easy, connected, and confident, naked, sexy fun times. Here we are, one part science of sex, one part mindfulness magic, and one part straight up real talk to help you find the spark in your relationship and yourself after kids. I am so glad you are here.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Sex After Kids podcast. Today I'm talking about the 6 reasons I loved to hate couples counseling, but also some alternatives if you are feeling stuck, particularly when it comes to your sex life. I know the one thing that the people that I talk to have tried beyond reading a book or trying an app is maybe going to couples counseling. And sometimes that is a very effective solution, and sometimes it is not when it comes to our sex life. So we're going to talk about that and why. But I want to start with 6 reasons that I love to hate couples counseling. So we started couples counseling the first time, sometime in the first year of our first kid together's life. So I met my stepson when he was 4. That was its own thing. Didn't have a lot of issues that like brought us to counseling there. But when I was like maybe 6-8 months postpartum with my daughter, probably undiagnosed depression or anxiety, pointing the finger and blaming a lot on my partner, I remember vividly sitting at the kitchen table in our tiny house downtown in this like granny breastfeeding nightie that I had, and just being like, I am feeling the four horsemen. If you're not familiar with the Gottman Institute, they talk about the four horsemen. I can't remember them all right now, but resentment and contempt are 2 of them, and they were probably the biggest ones. I was feeling the four horsemen of your relationship apocalypse. And I just remember looking at my partner and being like, I am feeling a lot of resentment and I am feeling a lot of contempt, and I do not want this to get the better of us, and I want us to go to couples counseling. And thankfully, my partner was game and it did a lot for us, but I loved to hate on it. And there's a couple reasons for that. The first is that just having to go felt like a failure, right? I am a recovering perfectionist, still am. I didn't want to need help. I didn't want to admit that we were struggling. I didn't want to admit that things were hard and that maybe I didn't have the tools that we needed. And I also know that couples counseling is 10 million times more effective, same as sex coaching, same as sex therapy, when you go early when problems are small or feel small, instead of when you go late as a last resort. Doesn't mean it's not worth going as a last resort, but you are going to get way more out of it when you go early and there's not mountains and mountains and mountains of resentment and attempts and failed attempts underneath you, right? The real failure would have been being too good for therapy, being too perfect for therapy. And so I'm glad we went, but I want to admit, and I'm sure most of you feel like that just having to go can feel like a failure. The second reason that I loved to hate on my therapy is that it forced me to face my own shit. So I was really comfortable in my blame and resentment, right? I was really comfortable pointing the finger at him and making everything all his fault. And while it's absolutely true that he had things to work on, and while it's absolutely true that I did too, and while it's absolutely true we have systemic failures that make parenting exceptionally hard these days, the truth is that it's not all his fault. And I had to sit with that, right? I thought so many of us think we're going to go to therapy and get proven right. And our therapist is just going to be like, yep, see, she's totally right. You're totally wrong. And it was uber frustrating to, of course, not get validation like that and have to face the perspectives and the beliefs and the habits that I was bringing to our relationship. I think the third thing, and maybe the most frustrating thing for me, was to have the realization that most of our struggles came down to stress and how we managed it. So, the bottom line is like people default to one or another way of responding to stress. Some of us are hyperactive, which means the more stressed we get, the more we add to our plate. The more judgmental we get, the more critical we get, the more we like ramp up the speed of things because we're trying to get a sense of control. So the more controlling we get to feel more in control. And then the other crew get hypoactive, which means they zone out, tune out, disassociate, plant themselves in front of Star Trek for hours, sleep a lot. They go in the opposite direction. And if you're married to somebody who's the opposite, it's very triggering because I am the hyperactive person. So I already default with my perfectionism to like judgment, criticism, and blame. And then the more stressed I am, the more I do that. And if he's stressed and hypoactive and doing less and entering zombie mode, I'm getting even more critical and judgmental, and I'm getting fuel to prove my point. And so the bottom line was that we had to look at these behaviors as flags. If Sophia is feeling critical, blamey, judgmental, it's not a sign her partner is lazy. It's a sign she's stressed out. And I needed to pay attention to that sign, and my partner needed to pay attention to that sign and use it as an opportunity to say, hey, you seem stressed. What can we fix? Likewise, my partner needed to recognize when I'm zoning out, tuning out, wanting to nap more, wanting to lean on TV more. And I had to notice when my partner is doing that. Instead of going, what the fuck is wrong with you? I had to go, what's going on for you? Right? Switching from judgment to curiosity was probably the biggest shift, but it was annoying. It was annoying to say, none of this magically goes away. This is not about some personality defect. This is not about something this needs to be fixed. This is about two humans dealing with stress in their life. And if we can get wise to how that stress shows up and manage it better, then things will shift. The fifth one was what I love to hate on, was that I couldn't fix him, right? This wasn't about changing him or me. In fact, in a lot of ways, it was about radically accepting my partner as he is, reminding myself that I love him and I don't get to love just parts of him. I have to love all of him as he is, and I have to love myself as I am, all of me. And when I could do that, when I could start to notice the good in my partner, when I could start to accept the whole of him as beautifully imperfect and wonderful, things also changed in that way. The fifth reason is that I love to hate on therapy was that it was like as easy as choosing to see the good. And this is something I talk about in one of my previous podcasts about like parenting tips that really saved my relationship, which is noticing the good. And this kind of relates to the last one, which is like you can choose to sit there and focus on what is wrong with your partner, what they're not doing right, what you hate about them, what needs to be fixed, and put a lot of effort on you being the person who's fixing things. And sometimes the answer is to just let it be. Sometimes the answer is to accept that we love each other and that we're okay just as we are. And not that we're creating problems, like it's okay to want more. And that sometimes just focusing on gratitude for what we do have and how things are going creates a positive effect, a positive snowball in the opposite direction. Sometimes we are clinging to our resentment and anger and frustration, and that does nobody any good. And the last thing that I love to hate on was that it didn't fix our sex lives. And that was really kind of, I mean, I've been the one who's been working on our sex life because I'm the one who's the sex coach. And I wouldn't say that it was like the primary reason that we get to counseling. We were kind of in a maintenance sex phase at that time where we both knew we just needed to like tap somebody on the shoulder once a month and like give it a go. And it didn't need to be rockstar quality sex because we just felt better after we did it. But we didn't talk about sex and intimacy in a very like concrete way in our sessions with our therapist. And I wouldn't say that therapy together as a couple helped me in any way to reconnect with my erotic self. It didn't help me to know what was going on with my body and why my vagina was in shutdown mode. If you listened to last week's episode about my vagina's tantrum that I had a couple weeks ago, it didn't help us to tune into nervous system. It didn't help either of us become a better lover or become more confident at being a better lover. And this is kind of the piece that's important to know, right? Is therapy is amazing in a lot of ways, especially if you're stuck in a place of blaming your partner for everything and really comfortable in that, or if you're coming at this from the angle of like really trying hard to like fix things. Because, when I talk to people, like what I work on with people is like communication skills, nervous system awareness, an understanding of your mindset around sex, and an understanding of your relationship to pleasure. And that's pleasure in all parts of your life, as well as like your connection to your erotic self. So a lot of these are soft skills. These are skills that we cover with a counselor in some ways. And most counselors don't have any background in sex or sexuality or sex therapy or sex education. Some who do might have one class in their entire therapy degree, and some might have an absolute deep dive specialization in it. And so this is just an important piece to know that if this is your primary issue, if everything else in your relationship, like when we went to therapy, everything else in our relationship was not good, right? There were communication challenges, there were perspective challenges around the mental load. There were bigger pieces, deeper pieces at play. But if those pieces are like pretty good for you in general, because they're not going to be perfect if your sex life is struggling. I wouldn't say you can have like a perfect relationship and be struggling in your sex life. But if things are generally good and you're struggling with the sex part, then that means you need someone with more of an understanding of sex. You need somebody who can actually like walk you through the clitoris and arousal and libido and like the science behind these things and how they work in your specific body. You need somebody who can work with you through how sexual trauma, shutdown, avoidance are showing up and how to work with the nervous system somatically. So that means like not talking about it, but doing something differently about it, so that you can shift how you both show up to sex, ultimately, so that you can help each other both feel like sex is a fun, safe, enjoyable place to go, right? So some therapy might help you with that, some might not. This is not always about talking about it to death. It is important to talk about our sex life. It is important to talk about what we want, what we crave, what our desires are, what our vision is. And if we're in shutdown, we might need to explore why talking about sex is uncomfortable for us. Maybe we're having a shutdown and a squick because we're a little bit more conservative. We're a little bit more, I don't know, we just learned or feel like talking about sex is gross, bad, evil, shameful, whatever it is, right? Maybe we need to process our ability to allow ourselves time to enjoy the pleasures of sex and the pleasures of life. And sometimes we just need to like actually crack a book on anatomy so that we can be having better sex that is worth craving, so that we can create that positive feedback loop. So if that's what you're looking for, if you're like, everything is actually pretty good in our relationship, and if you're feeling frustrated that your counselor is not really going there when it comes to sex, I'd say two things. One, if you are in counseling right now and you want to work with through the sex stuff, like, are you being overt and clear with your therapist that that's where you want to go? And ask about their capacity to go there. What are their skills and knowledge in this area? Because maybe they can support you. Or maybe the key issue is communication, and that's something that you folks can work on together with them. And if you feel like most things are pretty smooth, then it might be time to consider working with someone like me who is a sex coach. Ideally, you want to work with someone who is certified. Ideally, you want to work with someone who is trauma informed. Ideally, you want to work with someone who works somatically. So we're not just talking about things, we're working with your body. We're dialoguing with your body. So my certification is with the Institute for Authentic Tantra Education with Davey Ward, and it's all based in Tantra, which means it's based in energy work, somatic work, trauma-informed work, and a very holistic perspective on what your sexuality is. And this is actually why I didn't go the counseling route and why I haven't gone the counseling route yet. I didn't want to pathologize people as broken. I wanted to understand how sex fit into their entire identity and help them to reintegrate it back into their entire identity. I also have a certification, took courses in sexual education. So I teach kindergartners and I teach seniors about sex and anatomy and libido and all of those kinds of things. And so a knowledge of all these pieces is what's going to help you get back to sex that is easy, fun, spontaneous, right? The bottom line is, especially if things are good in your relationship and you're struggling with the sex part, here's what I want you to know, okay? You were not born a 5-star chef, okay? You may not be a good chef still. I am not a great cook, right? I cooked these vanilla wafers this weekend. They fucking sucked, all right? They were flat. They didn't puff up. They looked nothing like the goddamn picture in the recipe. It's the first time I've ever cooked them. So I probably either didn't measure accurately or maybe there was something missing in the recipe. Turned out maybe I had to chill the dough and the recipe didn't say that. So I'm going to have to cook those wafers a few times before I either get a new recipe or figure out how to crack the code. But I didn't expect the wafers to be perfect the first time in, and you can't expect your sex life to be perfect the first time you try anything new, but also that you weren't born a 5-star lover either. There are actual skills needed to be a 5-star lover, and quite the opposite. You weren't born a 5-star lover, and people have been actively withholding this information from you your whole life, right? You did not learn about how to create nervous system safety in your partner in high school sex ed. In fact, you likely did not even learn about the clitoris and how to please it. So stop guilting yourself for this. Stop beating yourself up for this. Drop the ego that you're supposed to be some 5-star lover, especially you penis owners, because that's what we teach you as a society. Take a deep breath with me and know that it's as simple as learning a few skills. There's a couple ways to work with me. If you want to do it for less than a latte, the Roommates to Romance Challenge is available now. It's a $9. 14 days of done-for-you prompts to focus on the initiation part of this stage. So getting more yeses, more maybes, more naked fun times if you are constantly getting shut down right now. It's specifically designed for higher libido partners and for couples to do together. And if you're like, this is all making sense, Sophia, and I want the fastest way to getting back to naked fun with my partner and more passion and play in the bedroom, because I don't want a dead bedroom after kids, then you're just going to want to book a free Spark session with me. We will go over your unique circumstances. We will talk about what is going on for you, and I will help you map out the exact steps to get you back to easy, spontaneous, and fun sex. That is all I have for you, my friends, today. Make sure you spread the love. Send this to a friend. You never know what they might be struggling with. And I will catch you next week.
This is the part where we do the end bit, right? My friends, let's take a mindfulness minute here. Take a deep breath in. Open that mouth and let out a big, deep, full body sigh. Voila. Your nervous system thanks you. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope that your head and your heart have something new to consider, something new to talk about, and something new to try. No husbands were harmed in the making of this podcast, and a big thank you to my husband for his help and original music composition. Love you, babe. This podcast was recorded on the traditional territories of the Kwanlin First Nation and Tonquachan Council in Whitehorse, Yukon. We acknowledge and are grateful to the original stewards of this land where we get to play, live, and raise our children. You can catch me on the Instagram at the Happy V Project for tips, tools, and anecdotes. And you can also join the weekly-ish newsletter for dispatches from my bedroom and my brain. Also, head to thehappyvaginaproject.com to learn more about how you can work with me. Catch you next time.